The investigation into this collision between the U.S. Navy destroyer, the Fitzgerald, and the ACX Crystal container ship is starting to reveal some very strange coincidences. Now, the channel has made the allegation since this happened that the idea of both crews, the destroyer's crew and the container ship crew, on a clear night with no weather issues and no problems, both being completely blissfully unaware that they were on a collision course 50 miles out to sea and taking absolutely no action to avoid the collision is implausible. Completely, totally implausible. You know, a giant container ship runs over a little fishing trawler it doesn't see. Okay, I can buy that. I could even might buy the fact that perhaps this could have a big ship like a destroyer or a frigate or even an aircraft carrier could perhaps there could be something out in front of it it couldn't see, little tiny, shrimp boat or something like that, and that could cause a problem and maybe cause it to capsize. I would believe that. I'm not saying accidents don't happen. I'm saying that in this particular case, what we had is a enormous 733 foot long, 29,000 ton container ship that the bridge sets 10 stories off the water. Didn't see a United States Navy destroyer, and more unbelievable to me, that a Navy destroyer, a ship whose complete life depends on its ability to determine its location, speed, and everything around it in real time, had no clue that this giant lumbering mess was on a glimpse. Sorry. And now we're starting to see some discrepancies come out that I think are going to reveal what the channel has alleged that there was, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think the Chinese hacked it. I think the Chinese have found the ability to hack communication satellites, GPS reporting satellites, in a way that keeps their fingerprints off of it, but can make a ship believe it's someplace it isn't, or traveling at a speed that it's not. And it can do that with both a container ship and a U.S. Navy ship, because they pretty much use the same systems. I mean, the Navy ship, of course, I'm going to get some pushback on that. I know they have a completely different system. But when I say that the same system, it's the same design of system. You have a satellite that is looking down on the Earth, and it's reporting information based on what's being reported back to it. And if you think that the Chinese haven't tried to hack these things, and haven't tried to, before I go to the hacking part of this, I'm going to cover the new discrepancy that makes this completely unbelievable. It says here, a track of the much larger container ships wrought by marine traffic of vessel tracking service shows it made a sudden turn, as if trying to avoid something at about 1:30 a.m., meaning that it didn't have any idea the destroyer was there. A sudden turn. It wasn't trying to just gently change course to avoid a collision because it saw it an hour and a half out. But before continuing eastward, it then made a U-turn and returned around 2:30 a.m. to the area near the collision. So, to my mind, that means it didn't know what it hit, and that it had no idea that a United States Navy destroyer was in front of it. Now, as unbelievable as that sounds, the next part here, now remember, what happened is when they talk about an hour delay, they didn't report this collision until 2:25 a.m. So the track shows it reacting suddenly to something at 1:30 and then reporting it at 2:25. And that is confirmed down here. The Coast Guard initially said the collision occurred at 2:20 a.m. because the Philippine ship had reported it at 2:25 a.m. and said it just happened. After interviewing Filipino crew members, the Coast Guard has changed the collision time to 1:30 a.m. Coast Guard officials Tetsuya Tanaka said they are trying to resolve what happened during the 50 minutes. Now, as unbelievable as that is, that this Philippine crew didn't call anybody until they went back and figured out they smacked into a destroyer. Here's the crazy part. Adding to the confusion, a U.S. Navy official said it's sticking with the 2:20 a.m. timing for the crash that he said had been reported by the Fitzgerald. Asked about the earlier time cited by the Coast Guard, Navy spokesman Commander Ron Flanders said that is not our understanding. He said any differences would have to be clarified in the investigation. Now, if you don't think at this point the U.S. Navy has a complete record of events down to the second of everything that happened 12 hours prior and up to the moment with that ship, you're out of your mind. They know exactly when it occurred. And they know exactly what happened. And I think they're hiding it. I think this is not something where they have a ship on the bottom of the sea that they've got to pull up and then get the black boxes from and then try to figure out. No, they got a ship, they got it in port, and the vast majority of the crew is safe. And God bless the sailors that died. It's a tragedy, but this was an act of war, I'm going to call it right now, by the Chinese on the U.S. They have made all sorts of threats about U.S. operations over there and wanting to keep them away from China's borders. And when you looked at this, and 2 videos past, I showed this, it was right near China, right off the coast of China, that this happened. So, anyway, the hacking part of this. Anyway, one more thing. He said officials are planning to get a hold of a device with communications records to examine further details of the crash. Now, here, this is speaking of Tetsuya Tanaka, the Japan Coast Guard official. He doesn't say whether the device that he's trying to get a hold of was off of the Navy vessel or off of the Philippine vessel. We don't know that, but I don't know if the Navy's going to turn over anything to these people. But if you just Google, good old-fashioned Google, Chinese hackers satellites, you can go through, Chinese hackers took control of NASA satellite for 11 minutes. Chinese hack U.S. weather system satellite network. Now, China, and this is the most recent article, China launches satellite aimed at hack-proof communications. I guess they don't want their satellites having the ability to be hacked. And they are light years ahead of us in this, folks. Inside the mysterious U.S. satellite hacking case. Report, 2 satellites attacked by Chinese hackers. Chinese hackers suspected of interfering with U.S. satellites. And you can go down and down and down and down. Normally I pull up these articles, but for some reason my computer is just acting weird today, and every time I pull up a bunch of tabs it freezes, so it's just an old computer. But Daily Mail, Chinese hackers had full control over NASA lab that commands 23 something or other, 23 spacecraft. So this isn't out of the realm of possibility, folks. And the map that I showed in the previous video shows this is right off the coast of China. This would not have been out of their wheelhouse of things that they would have threatened to do. And the fact that we have a discrepancy between the timing of the actual accident and the reporting of the accident, not just from one crew, but from both crews, that would be a great way to do it. If you could have the clocks aboard one of these 2 ships messed with in a way that would show them at a location that they were not at. Because what happened is basically you had 2 ships that occupied the same piece of water at the same time. Now, if one occupies that piece of water 15 minutes prior to the other one, no problem. If it's 15 minutes after, no problem. You know, ships occupy the same water out there all the time. It's all about when they occupy the water. And if there's an issue with the clocks, an issue with the time, that would be a very easy hack to do. All you would have to do is show one moving a little bit slower than the other, or one moving a little bit faster than what they're reporting. And both crews thinking that they are going to miss each other by half a mile or a quarter mile. And over a long trip like this, where everything is run by computers, and that this happened in the overnight, I don't think it's an accident, folks. I don't think this is an accident. I think this was planned. Modern Navy Arleigh Burke class destroyers are not your average Joe Blow fishing boat. They live and die and operate based on their ability to understand where they are in space. They can't fire on a target unless they know where the ship is first. That's how they determine how far away their target is, what elevation it's at, and how to hit those targets so precisely. They use the satellite information for that. But it all boils down to the ship knowing where it is first, because if it can't say exactly, and I don't mean generally where it is, using like a sextant and the stars and all that, if it can't say exactly down to the foot where it is, it won't be able to fire on targets. It won't be able to do it. The missiles aboard, some of them have electronics that talk to the satellites, that report where they are, where they were fired from. That's why they can put these things basically in a glove box of a car from 200 miles away. And to say they have the ability to do that, but they don't have the ability, or it's possible because of human error, to sail into or be sailed into by an enormous container ship who's also being tracked by satellite, it's just baloney, folks. It's crap. This is beyond the realm of possibility in 2017. 1997, perhaps, satellite technology in its infancy. I've said this before. We're already talking about having self-driving trucks and self-driving cars because the satellite technology is so advanced that we can determine the speed and course of a car within a matter of feet to keep it from hitting other individuals or other cars on the road amongst tens of thousands of other cars in the same area. To say that this ship 50 miles out at sea, and not some civilian ship, a U.S. Navy ship, lost track of something like this around it, bull. Crap. Sorry, not buying it. There is something being hidden. So I'll get off of here. Thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe, and we will maintain eyes on this and see what's reported. Thank you much.